Hi there, welcome to Wednesdays on the Pagan Perspective. My name's Tatiana, I am Megan's substitute, and today we're talking about paganism and marriage. I'm sorry, but I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this. I didn't practice my script in front of a mirror, so I'll be reading a lot and probably there'll be some that I'll try to avoid. Well, our question today comes from Lola, and she's asking how pagans view marriage and whether husband and wife are perceived as equals by pagans without the submission of the woman. Well, a couple of things come immediately to my mind when reading her question. And the first one is that marriage is not only about a man and a woman. And I certainly cannot speak for everyone, but I think it's safe to say that the pagan community is very welcoming to homosexual and homoaffective relationships and gender fluidity. And that itself sets paganism apart from other religious structures or religious institutions. And not only that, but also in paganism, sex is not only seen as means of reproduction. Scott Cunningham says about the Wiccans, but this really applies to paganism and pagans in general. He says in the Guides for the Solitary Practitioner about sex: the Wicca don't avoid sex or speak of it in hushed words. It's part of nature and it is accepted as such. And he also says, since it brings pleasure, shifts our awareness away from the everyday world and perpetuates our species, it is thought to be sacred. Another good reference, which is the Witch's Bible by the Farrar couple. They say, Wicca starts off by accepting sexuality as wholly natural and good, and goes on from there to seek fuller understanding of masculine-feminine polarity and how to make constructive use of it, both psychologically and magically. Wiccan sexual morality arises from that attitude, instead of, as happens too often, being imposed on it. I think that these days so many people are making great efforts to bring sexual and gender acceptance and equality into society. And I think that's very important, that there are faiths and spiritual religious communities out there that will not exclude people based on sexual and gender criteria. So yeah, I think this is something that sets the pagan community apart. The second thing that I'd like to talk about is how pagan and paganism are umbrella terms, and it's really hard when you ask, what do pagans do? What do pagans think? Because there are so many different people with different opinions, different beliefs, different practices, all under the umbrella of paganism. I find that people tend to think a lot about Wicca upon hearing the word paganism. This happens a lot to me because I'm pagan, but I'm not Wiccan. But speaking of Wicca, one thing that I do know from books is that there tends to be a great focus on the female aspect of the divine, the goddess, and also on women because of their raw goddess energy. In some Wiccan branches, the importance of the goddess is such that the god, the male aspect of the divine, gets a bit to quite overshadowed. For example, the Gardnerian and Alexandrian lines, they frown upon covenants or partnerships that do not include at least one woman. From the Witch's Bible, A two-woman initial partnership should be workable if no suitable man could be found, but a two-man partnership would tend to be magically unfruitful. This focus on the female divine and women is probably a reaction to the centuries of stifling patriarchal culture and religions, and although I think that's understandable, I also think that one should be a bit careful not to lose the balance that exists between the male and female in the divine. Scott Cunningham says, religion based entirely on feminine energy is as unbalanced and unnatural as one totally masculine in focus. The ideal is a perfect balance of the two. The goddess and the god are equal, complementary. And I tend to think that this idea of the goddess and the god walking side by side and not one in front of the other is something that most pagans take into their lives and into their relationships, but then again, that's just such a personal thing. So, who knows?